We're going to read Six Dots, a story of young Louis Braille. So I am guessing that Louis Braille invented Braille. I never heard of Braille as a person's name before, but it's such a common word that it must have been named for this guy. So let's find out what he did. Six Dots, a story of young Louis Braille. On the day I was born, Papa announced me to the village. "Here is my son, Louis." The neighbors came, clucking their tongues, whispering, "Too small, he won't survive." So I know that this guy invented Braille, so he probably is blind. And it says that he was really small and they didn't think he would live, so I'm going to guess that he was born blind, and maybe part of being sick when he was a newborn might be why he was blind. So let's keep reading and find out if that's true. Oh, but I did survive. I was a curious child, and my eyes studied everything. Oh my, so it seems like he wasn't blind when he was little. Maybe he gets sick later and then he gets blind. Maman's gentle face, lace draping my cradle, the smooth shape of a bread loaf on the table. I grew strong and healthy. When I rode to the baker's on my brother's broad shoulders or fed the chickens with my sisters, the villagers waved and smiled. "So handsome," they cried. "And clever, too," my sisters said. At 3, I knew everyone in Coupray by name. I counted the eggs in my sister's basket and the sparrows in the trees. I repeated stories I heard, word for word. But what I loved most was to watch Papa work. People came from far away to have a harness made or a broken bridle mended. In Papa's hands, the rough leather strips became smooth and useful. I wanted to be just like him. But when I reached for a tool, "Ne touchez pas! Don't touch that," Papa warned. Then, more gently, "You're too small yet, Louis. Wait till you're older." Too small. Those words. I wanted to be bigger, stronger, older. Perhaps if I showed Papa what I could do. The leather was smooth. The awl was sharp. I knew just how to... "Papa! Papa! Papa!" Oh my. Well, he's using something sharp that he's not supposed to use because he's not ready for it yet. And he's screaming and covering his eyes in the picture. So this doesn't look good. I'm going to guess that he really hurt his eye with that awl. I think, though, that the author just wants us to know that it happened. He doesn't really want to focus on like the pain or anything like that, because he just has him screaming. He doesn't have it saying, "and then he poked his eye out" or anything like that. So let's see if that really is what he's telling us, that he's just really injured his eye, but we need to focus on other things of the story and not just that it hurts to get your eye poked out. My life changed that day. A healer bandaged my eye. Again I heard, "Ne touchez pas, don't touch." But the bandage itched so much. My hands, like the sparrows in the trees, were small and quick. I couldn't keep them away. I didn't mean to make things worse, but I did. The infection spread to my other eye until I could see nothing at all. No trees or sparrows, no faces, no lace or loaves of bread. By the time I turned 5, I was completely blind. The villagers whispered, "Poor Louis Braille. Such a clever boy. What will happen to him now? My world was dark and dangerous. I stumbled about the house, banging into the chairs, the walls, the door. My body ached. Where is the sun? I cried. Oh my, he's pretty miserable now. And it's talking about the villagers feeling sorry for him. So maybe we are supposed to think about how sad it is. Let's see. We'll find out in the next pages. Either the author will start talking about what Louis did after all these things happened, or it's going to keep being about how sad it was. But the sun did not come. I sat by the window, training my ears to do what my eyes could not. Oh, that sounds like he's doing something to maybe make things better. Clang, bang, kish, kish. That was Papa in his shop. Swoosh, swish, swoosh, swish. Long-skirted ladies hurrying to market. Clomp, 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 stomp. Soldiers marching down the street. Grrr, grrr, ruff, ruff, grrr. The neighbor's angry dog, chained too tight. Alone in the dark. I knew just how he felt. My family did what they could. Papa made a wooden cane. Each day I walked a little farther, tap, 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 counting the steps between the house and the garden, the vineyard and the chicken coop, the bakers and the millers, and back to Papa's shop. It's interesting. I know a guy who's blind, and he talked to me a lot about traveling by using a cane, and he said that you can really do a lot with the sounds that the cane makes, and it looks like Louis Braille's learning how to do that too. So that's kind of cool. I'm reading about someone who does something that I've seen before. My brother taught me to whistle. Ree, ree, roo! And when the sound echoed back, it warned me of things in my path. Hey, just like that guy telling me how he uses the echo from his cane to know how close things are. My sisters made a straw alphabet. Papa made letters with leather strips or by pounding round-topped nails into boards. With Maman, I played dominoes, counting the dots with my fingertips. Well, he's starting to feel letters with his hands, so maybe he's about to invent Braille. The village priest taught me to recognize trees by their touch, flowers by their scent, and birds by their song. I listened closely as he read to me from the Bible and from books of poetry. Do you have books for blind children? I asked. No, Louis, the priest replied. I'm sorry. When I was older, I went to school with the other village children. All day, as they wrote down words and numbers or read out loud from printed pages, I sat in the front row, listening and memorizing. Do you have books for blind children? I asked again. No, Louis, the teacher replied. I'm sorry. But I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. I just wanted to read and to write on my own, like everyone else. The Marquis, a noble lady living nearby, heard about me. She wrote a letter to the Royal School for the Blind, asking if I could study there. Finally, a reply came. Bienvenue. Welcome, Louis. The priest says they have books for the blind, I told Papa excitedly. But you're only 10, Maman cried. And you'll live there most of the year, my brother added. Paris is a big city, far away, my sisters warned. How could I make them understand? Without books, I would always be poor Louis Braille. I would always be held back, like that dog chained too tight. I love you, I told them, but I must go. Sounds like he's pretty determined. I mean, I know a lot of people with disabilities who do lots of hard work and really want to read and write and do all these other things. So it's neat to see that Louis Braille can kind of be a role model for them, because he did it too. I didn't need my eyes to know that the royal school in Paris was not a palace. My hard bed was in a damp, crowded room. My uniform itched. My meals were small and cold. The teachers were strict. The older boys teased and stole. How I missed my home. And yet, I stayed. I stayed because somewhere in this old, moldy building there were books for the blind. Only the best students are allowed to read them, my friend Gabrielle told me. Then I will be one of the best, I replied. Learning at the blind school was almost like learning in Coupray. We sat and listened. We memorized and recited. We also had music lessons and made slippers in the workshop. As my fingers flew across the organ keys or between the strips of cloth, I dreamed of reading and writing. I worked and studied as hard as I could. Finally what? Maybe he's going to get the books. It was that day. A guide led me to the library. Asseyez-vous ici. Sit here, he commanded. There was a shuffling, grunting, and scraping. A thud. Voilà. There it is, he said. Just trace the raised letters with your fingers. It was a long reach to the top of page 1. My fingers traced the outline of each letter, just as I'd done in Coupray, with straw and leather. But these waxy letters were huge. After reading the first sentence this way, my hand was halfway down the page. A few sentences more, and I had to turn the page. A few more sentences, 2 more pages, and then the end. Even Braille today, it takes a long time to write in it. Braille books are big, so that's interesting that Louis ran into that right away. C'est tout? Is that all? I asked. There are more, the guide replied, but they're just like this one. Words as large as my hand. Sentences that took up half a page. I sighed. Even if I read 100 books like this, how much could I learn? I skipped supper. I lay in bed, wishing I was home. When I finally fell asleep, I dreamed that the neighbor's angry dog broke free. He ran to me, licking my face until I laughed and laughed. Louis, Louis, lève-toi, get up. Gabrielle shook me awake. It was morning. The headmaster wants us. Let's go, allons. Everyone had gathered in the big room. Dr. Pinier spoke. A French army captain has invented a code to send secret messages during battle. The code is read by touch, not by sight, so we might use it here, too. You're each holding a message, written with patterns of dots, the headmaster continued. Each pattern stands for a sound, such as oui, or in, or ch. We listened as he explained. It wasn't easy. There was a lot to remember. Flipping my paper over, I moved my fingers from left to right, feeling the dots. Fall back, I shouted. Everyone laughed. It was a battle order, of course. But now my heart pounded with hope. I asked for another. Again I touched the dots. Supplies arrive at dawn. Oui! Yes! The headmaster cried. The others shouted out their messages, too. How are the messages written? I asked. The headmaster handed me a slate, a wooden frame with a metal piece in the middle. Slide your paper underneath, he explained. Now take this stylus, but be careful. The sharp tool was like the awl in Papa's shop. I shivered. Use it to punch the code into the paper, he said. I made a few of the complicated dot patterns, then flipped the paper to read them by touch. For many weeks I practiced. Reading by touch using dots was a brilliant idea, at least on the battlefield. But for us, the code was so hard that everyone else in the school had given up. Even a short message takes so many dots, and I can't fit a single symbol under my finger, I complained to Gabrielle. Plus, the captain's code stands for sounds, not for letters. So what? My friend replied. So why shouldn't we spell words and write sentences like sighted people do? I argued. This code was a start, but it wasn't nearly good enough. We, the blind, were still held back. Would the captain work on improving it with me? I asked.